I'm John Ward, and when I'm in Saratoga Springs, I watch Capital OTB TV.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Down the Stretch. Along with my colleague Mike VIETCH, the racing columnist with the Saratogian, I'm Mark CUSANO, welcoming you to this morning's show as we close out the month of January on Sunshine Millions Saturday. And over the next 60 minutes, we will be presenting you with one very, very special guest. He is the man of the moment, the man of the day, Mr. Jerry Bailey, who later on this afternoon will be riding for the final time aboard Silver Tree in the Sunshine Millions Turf, race number 9 at Gulfstream Park. So settle in, and a bit later on, you will be hearing 21 minutes from Jerry Bailey. Along the way, we will salute the champions from 2005, including the Horse of the Year. We'll take a look at the NTRA Moment of the Year. We'll discuss the death of a champion. And later on, we'll look at our updated lists of top Derby prospects, as well as what's been happening in Pool 1 of the Derby Futures. So all of that and much, much more if you stay with us on yet another pleasant January Saturday.
3 in a row here. You didn't think this was going to happen. Speaking of moments of the year, there were a few moments of the week this week in Albany and New York, with the ad hoc committee continuing to take testimony on the future of New York racing. Just a few quick points before we get rolling. I understand Saratoga made a strong presentation. I understand Frank Stronach made a very strong and very enjoyable presentation. Mark was there to see it. I understand Churchill was not there. But mostly, I think it's important that the 6 of the 9 people who are supposed to be there, I believe at the end of Wednesday's hearings, probably heard and attempted to digest more about racing than I ever thought they were going to have to.
Oh, without question.
Before they were appointed to this board. But hopefully we'll plow forward in the right direction.
Hopefully, yes. We begin this morning's show on a sad note, the death of a former champion. Groovy, the champion sprinter from 1987, has passed away at the age of 23. He was euthanized on Thursday. A winner of 12 of 23 lifetime starts, $1.34 million. You know, certainly those of us in our age group remember him as a blazing, fast racer.
Oh, tough, brilliantly fast, and a little bit of an oddity by Norcliffe, this sire who was nothing but stamina, winner of 2/3 of the Canadian Series at 1.5 miles, sired 1.5 miles from a family of 1.5 milers, and he sired one of the fastest horses, just my opinion, one of the fastest horses, at least of the late 20th century, in Groovy. He was something to watch. He was a killer.
Also the death of a Glitter Woman, who back in the late 1980s, for Joe Allen and Shug McGahee, she's a multiple stakes winner and a very, very nice filly. All right. We have got a number of emails to answer for you this morning, and my partner's got 3 of them for you.
I've got 3 of them. I enjoyed each. From Marie D'Antrone, you wrote me about my new book on horse pedigrees. I'm sorry, it's not on horse pedigrees. It's on 19th century thoroughbred racing, and if you're interested in a copy, let me know, but I hate to disappoint you. Great question from last week. Mark just passed this off to me. He didn't want anything to do with it. This is a very, very good one. And this question deals with voice commands, and I apologize for not having who it's from. Do you have the original? It was from
Jim from
Saratoga. Jim, I'm sorry. And Jim, I went to 2 trainers about your question, asking about voice commands, and in particular, does it matter if it's in a different language? The 2 trainers I went to were Jim Bond and John VIETCH, and Jim and his wife Tina. And Jim and Tina told me that without question they understand voice commands. The importance is the tone of voice that you use. John VIETCH, the former trainer, now state steward in Kentucky, echoed the same sentiments but made an interesting point. It was his opinion it took them some time to become accustomed to a new language, and John noticed that when he trained horses from South America, he described them as confused for a period of time, even getting the same set of instructions. Thank you for a very good question. I enjoyed getting that answer. Bob Clayton asks, and Bob, I thought this was a wonderful and thoughtful analysis of my pedigree analysis. Let me read your letter. Enjoyed last Saturday's show and especially your explanation of the 3-year-old grading system. Had not heard of the basis of the scoring, and I was curious. I was happy to hear you say that you value the female side more than the sire in your pedigree analysis. I too believe generally the female side is more important than stamina. One thought, however, if the female side is typically more important, why average the 2 ratings to a single number? This is a fine thought. It tends not to give a stronger weight to the bottom side. How about instead of a 50-50 weighting, you also weight the side that is stronger? Thus, if the female side has produced several stakes winners at distances of 9 and 10, why not weight accordingly, such as 40% sire and 60% dam? Finally, an interesting comment at the end, which I'll address before I go to pedigree analysis. Bob makes an interesting observation that we've watched. On days like the Derby Day, the tracks are souped up. They are blazing fast. Quoting, the speeds of the race increase, and then Churchill can say what great races they were. Look at the final times. Now, an 8 or 9 furlong horse can sneak out an extra furlong in a 10 furlong race. I think that's a very fine point. Let me take it back to the pedigree weighting, because I have thought about this since I've done it. If I did use your system, I would have been less embarrassed on days like a Fleet Alex winning the Kentucky Derby. But I have some things to respond to here. First off, the sire and dam are 50-50 genetically. Secondly, that said, the collective power in the class of the dam for me is more important than the sire, i.e. if successive moms and daughters consistently produce well, that says a lot. But Bob, I've got to say something here. Sires often improve the racing quality of the mare's produce, and as their long-term records continue and in many instances improve, it puts me in the positions of how in the world can I devalue the sire? For example, and I pose this question to you, how could I say that on the sire side, AP Indy, Sadler's Wells, Mr. Prospector, Stormcat could be worth any less than the dam side? So I'm going to stick with the 50-50. It's a great question, and I would conclude by saying that I sometimes have thought that dosage got in some trouble by trying to tweak and subjectify by worrying about what, in other words, they would move sires into different categories. So I'm going to leave it alone, but I got to tell you, Bob, that was a great letter, and I enjoyed it immensely.
And finally, we received an email last week, which I responded to from Dave in Ballston Lake, and part of it was about a horse named Ramsgate, and I told you folks he was trained by Bobby Frankel. Well, I also mentioned that he was likely in South Florida with Bobby Frankel. Well, he's in California, and he broke his maiden on November 12th at Hollywood Park. On December 28th in a Santa Anita allowance, he turned in a very poor effort. That race was won by Wanna Runner. So again, Dave and everybody else, Ramsgate is in Southern California with Bobby Frankel. And again, you can go to Daily Racing Form Stable Mail. It's free of charge. You can type in any horse you want to follow, and they'll send you an email when that horse works, when he's entered, and when he runs, they'll send you a chart. So it's a very, very nice thing. So thanks to all of you for your emails this week. And if you would like to correspond with us here at Down the Stretch, here are the ways in which you can do that: through the United States Postal Service, Down the Stretch, Mark and Mike, Capital District, OTB, 510 Smith, Schenectady 12305, or electronically, the most popular way, at viewer mail at capitalotb.com. Last Monday night in Southern California, the ceremony for the 35th Eclipse Awards. Let's take a look at the winners, the champions from 2005, and as we go through it, I'll give you some of the vote totals. Steeplechaser McDynamo, 226 votes. By the way, in total, 262 ballots were returned. Steeplechaser McDynamo, 226 votes. All the others got 7. In the 2-year-old male, Stevie Wonderboy, 230 first place votes. First Samurai runner-up with 25. The 2-year-old filly Folklore, 257 first place votes. Wild Fit got 2. The 3-year-old male, a Fleet Alex, 253 first place votes. Flower Alley got 6. For the first time that I can remember, the Kentucky Derby winner did not get a single vote for champion 3-year-old male.
Okay.
I can't remember the last time that happened.
Okay.
3-year-old filly was Smuggler, who received 177 first-place votes. Indian Vale was second with 24, Summerlee got 20, Round Pond got 16, and Sweet Catamine in the Gold got 9 each. There's a look at the first portion of the champions. Now moving on to champion older male, and it was St. Liam in a romp. 250 first-place votes. 5 people felt that Go Zapper off 1 race should be champion older male. Rock Hard 10 got 3 votes, and Roses in May received 1. The champion older filly or mare was a Shadow with 203 first-place votes. Pleasant Home was second with 49. The Sprinter, in spite of a poor effort in the Breeders' Cup, Lost in the Fog received 209 first-place votes. Silver Train, the Breeders' Cup winner, was second with 30. The ill-fated Saratoga County finished third with 11. And Go Zapper, 7 people voted Go Zapper as champion sprinter. On last week's show, I told you that I thought without question that the next category would be the closest. The next category, champion turf male. And man, oh man, was it close. Loa de Sanamo, who was upset by Artie Schiller in the Breeders' Cup Mile, defeated Artie Schiller by a count of 119 to 116. Partner, you obviously can't get much closer than that.
And I salute Leroy. I didn't pick him, but he's a worthy champion, and that race was indeed that close, and there's no way it could not have been that close.
Scirocco was a distant third with 17 votes, but folks, keep something in mind. If only 2 voters who had voted for Loa de Sanamo had gone to Artie Schiller, we would have had a different champion. So Loa de Sanamo by a nose as champion turf male. The champion turf female, overwhelmingly intercontinental, 245 first place votes. The second finisher was Cesario, the Japanese filly, and she got 8. Now moving on to the human categories. The outstanding breeder, Adina Springs, 129 votes. Edward Evans, 53. Live Oak, 27. The outstanding owner, and I predicted this on last week's show, Michael Gill got 75. Eugene Melnick got 64. Live Oak received 42. Michael Gill won it. I think he had 1 Grade 2 stakes win all year. The outstanding trainer, Todd Pletcher, 226. Steve Asmussen, 15, Bobby Frankel, 5, and Rick Dutrow and Tim Ritchie, 4 each. For jockey Johnny Velasquez, 2 in a row, 195, Edgar Prado with 20, Jerry Bailey with 19. The outstanding apprentice, Canadian Emma Jane Wilson, received 185 first-place votes. Channing Hill, 42, Justin Stein, 11. This is only the second woman in the 35-year history of the Eclipse Awards to win Outstanding Apprentice Rider. Do you know who the other one was? Think about that for a moment. Emma Jane only the second. And the Lifetime Award of Merit goes to one of the great ladies in racing, Penny Chenery. If you're too young to remember Penny Chenery, it was Meadow Stable, it was Riva Ridge, it was Secretariat. There is a look at the Eclipse winners. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2005 Horse of the Year, as expected, was St. Liam. In an absolute runaway, St. Liam received 194 votes. Fleet Alex was second with 56. It was a 3.5 to 1 margin. St. Liam, the winner of, you're watching the Breeders' Cup Classic, the Woodward, the Stephen Foster, the Don, owned by Mr. and Mrs. William Warren Jr., and trained by Rick Dutrow. Last year as a 5-year-old, a winner of 4 Grade 1s and 6 starts, easily outpolled the champion 3-year-old, the Fleet Alex. There were 4 others receiving 1 vote for Horse of the Year each. Lost in the Fog, Rock Hard 10, Roses in May, and Go Zapper. 1 person voted for Go Zapper as Horse of the Year off 1 single race. Partner, to me, there were absolutely no surprises, including Mike Gill as owner, in this year's Eclipse Awards. What are your thoughts?
No shocks at all. The only comment I like to make is that in particular with Horse of the Year voting, it makes me happy to think that the voters did so many very, very wise things, and it showed, particularly in Horse of the Year, with the enormously popular Fleet Alex, with the controversy surrounding trainer Richard Detrow, that they selected a horse that had a coast-to-coast campaign, won 4 Grade 1s in different states, and had what you would consider to be a Horse of the Year campaign. And they rather handily picked him over the winner of 2/3 of the Triple Crown. Was the winner of the 2/3 of the Triple Crown maybe more talented? Well, that's a maybe, but an old rule came into play here in the year 2005. A lot of people think a good 4-year-old will beat a good 3-year-old, and that's exactly how it played out. And that's what I enjoyed about the Eclipse process this year.
A couple of weeks ago, we unveiled the ballots of the 7 local voters, and Warren Alber and Dave Litvin each voted for 12 champions. Bill Heller, Nick Kling, and John Preachy each voted for 13 champions, and Michael and myself both voted for 14 champions. But there's a look at the champions of 2005, the Eclipse Award winners. Now, also last week, the announcement of the NTRA Moment of the Year, and this as well was absolutely no surprise. It's a Fleet Alex in the Preakness Stakes with 82% of the vote, and certainly that is the part of the Preakness, and that's the image that everyone will remember from 2005. Partner, this got 82% of the vote. My only question is, where the heck are the other 18%?
How did it not get 100? I mean, we're sort of getting old, and we've probably only seen something like that less than a handful of times in nearly 50 years of watching races. There won't be too many more in our lives, so that would have been a hands down for me.
Now, before I take you to the break, I had a trivia question out there. Emma Jane Wilson, only the second female to win.
I mean, I don't know. You'd lead me to think that it would have to be Julie Crone because of that name, but if it's not Julie, is it someone like Diane Nelson or the girl Robin
Smith?
Robin Smith, I don't know. Tell me who it is.
The only other female to win champion apprentice jockey, and somebody in my ear just said Donna Barton. No,
okay.
Rosemary Homeister Jr.
Well, how about that?
From South, who had a wonderful career in South Florida. I believe she eventually married Jose Ferrer, a fellow rider.
Okay.
But Emma Jane became only the second female rider to win champion apprentice, and it wasn't Julie. Julie obviously had a sensational career. But there's a look at the Eclipse winners from 2005. And we are up to our first break on this morning's finale in January. Hallelujah. We've only got a couple of winter months
You've been
in front of us.
gifted for the whole month.
Yes, I have. When Michael and I return, it's a very, very special guest, Mr. Jerry Bailey. He will join us for a very lengthy interview that I'm sure you're going to enjoy. So take the time right now to run and get a second cup of coffee or another glass of orange juice so you're back in time. So Michael and I will be back with Jerry Bailey and much, much more right after these messages.
Hi, I'm John Kimmel, and you're watching Capital OTB.
Need to choose a Medicare drug plan.
Oh, the big fight's about to start.
Well, you don't want a big fight to start in here, do you? Besides, you could be saving money.
Wait just a minute. How much?
Says here Pacificare could save you hundreds, even thousands of dollars.
Thousands?
One thing the good old days didn't have is Medicare drug coverage. Now, if you're Medicare eligible, Prescription Solutions from Pacificare makes the new drug coverage even better, offering a variety of plans starting under $23 a month in many states, with no $250 Medicare plan deductible. Call us anytime, 24 hours a day, to get our free prescription drug plan information kit. In addition to our Medicare drug plans, Pacificare also offers dental and vision programs starting at just $5 a month. Call now for information on how to start saving. If Fred could have done it, he would have.
back to Down the Stretch, everyone. Mike Veitch to my left. I'm Mark CUSANO. I was remiss in not mentioning Bobby Frankel. I think he deserves special mention here because I believe, I'm not 100% certain of this, but I believe that with the Eclipse victories of Loire de Saint-Amo and Intercontinental, both trained by Frankel, he became the first trainer to win both male and female turf eclipses in the same year.
Wow,
that's huge. So congratulations to Bobby Frankel. This is a very big day, obviously, with the Sunshine Millions, very, very nice races, but everything, in my opinion, is overshadowed by the fact that this will be the final day of riding by Jerry Bailey. At the age of 48, Jerry joins a list of fellow Hall of Famers who, since we went on the air in March of 1992, have retired and changed the landscape dramatically, and you'll hear about that from Jerry in the interview. This is going to strike us, and we're going to feel this much more here in New York than any of the most recent retirements. As much as we enjoyed watching Pat Day and Gary Stevens, we had Jerry Bailey here in New York every year from May through October. We saw him on a daily basis. What did he win the Saratoga riding title seven different times?
Or several in a row.
So this is going to be, he is going to be dramatically missed. The greatest grass rider that I've ever seen and one of the greatest money riders ever. And on Thursday, Michael and I had the opportunity to sit down and chat with Mr. Jerry Bailey. Jerry, as you approach your final day of racing and eventually your last mount, what emotions are you feeling?
Well, it's not quite as emotional at this point as some might think. I'm sure it will be when I go out on the track for the last race or two or three. But it's been a process in coming. You know, it's not something that, like, I got injured or something dramatic happened and I have to retire. I mean, I have been close to making the decision for a couple of years now, so it's like the sands in the hourglass are diminishing and diminishing and diminishing, so you could see it coming. So I have my moments, but it's only moments at this point.
Jerry, why did you choose this time to retire?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, there was a couple of options. I kind of targeted the Breeders' Cup in November as a time. But, you know, the reason I didn't do that is because I was very close in 04 to doing that. And then I took the month of December off, which I usually do. And I really felt good when I came back in January of 05. And I started riding, and I felt like I could make it through the whole year with enthusiasm and a zest for my job. And I did that, although it was a bit more of a drag for me throughout the year. The days became longer away from my family. The races in between big races became more stressful and less fun. So I knew that probably the end of 05 would be it, but I wanted to still, again, give myself the month off of December and then come back and start riding in January like I did in 05 and see if any of it was still there, and it really wasn't.
Jerry, for so very many years, you've competed at the very highest level in this sport. What did that mean to you?
Well, it meant everything to me. I mean, when you do something, you hope you can be the best at it. If not the best, at least close to it. And I thought I had the talent. Maybe not as talented as some of the guys, but I knew I could find a way. And in my way was work harder, prepare better, and maybe that would give me enough of an edge to be better than everybody else. And I think on a lot of occasions it worked.
Jerry, so many outstanding horses that you've ridden through the years and countless special moments. Talk about some of the biggest thrills that you've had in the sport.
Well, the derbies would obviously be very, very high. I mean, that's what a jockey aspires to win when he puts the white pants on. You know, if somebody finds out what you do for a living as a jockey, the first question they'll ask you is, have you ever been in the Kentucky Derby? And it followed shortly, probably, by have you ever won it? So once you win that, the feeling is, the proverbial monkey's off your back, first of all, but the feeling you get is so dynamic that you just can't wait to do it again. And I was fortunate enough to be able to do it twice. But I guess I've been so fortunate in so many great moments. I got to put Cigar up there winning the World Cup as maybe the best. Not only because it was the world's richest race, but it was because of the cigar. And I didn't really love horses when I came in the game. I liked them. I've been around them all my life. But I didn't love them. I loved the competition more than anything else. I think that's what drew me to the sport. But when I stumbled onto Cigar, he was so special, so charismatic, and not to mention what everybody knows, how talented he was. But something about him that just made me fall in love with horses. And I spent every moment I could around him. And I had a whole new appreciation for was after him. And I think that, combined with my drive for competition, made me as good as I was. I think the package of both those items propelled me through the last 10 or 11 years of my career.
That was a wonderful explanation. Jerry, on last week's show, I mentioned your Derby ride in 1996 aboard Grindstone. And I said if it's possible to go 1.25 miles in America's greatest race and put up a flawless ride, Jerry Bailey did. Jerry, comment on the 96 Derby, your ride, and what you remember about that.
Well, it was Grindstone, and he came from way back. You know, the funny thing was he was in his race in New Orleans, which was 2 races prior. He won the Louisiana Derby. He broke real sharp and put me, you know, within a few lengths, which people might understand. It makes a job for a jockey much easier because you don't have nearly the traffic to weave in and out of, fewer decisions to make. Just a whole lot easier. You don't have to ride as hard, as long, because you're already up close to the lead. And then he went to Arkansas and he drew the 12-post, which I don't believe anybody had won out of the 12-post all year, and ran a great second. Again, you know, kind of put me into the race and made my decision-making a lot less. In the Derby, however, he didn't break that well and didn't show a lot of speed, and before I knew it, I found myself almost last. I mean, I think I was 14th or 15th, something in that area. But I found a spot. I knew when he did that, I knew I just had to find a spot where he wouldn't get bumped around. I'm already back in the back of the pack, so I just wanted to find him an easy path to get around the first turn. What people don't realize sometimes, the Derby is such a rush and a madhouse. It's very similar to walking down the streets of New York or any crowded city among a bunch of people. You get pushed, your shoulders get pushed around, and you know, and it wears you out, you know, because you get pushed around so much. So you try and avoid that in the Kentucky Derby, at least for the first part of the race. And your horse has a lot more energy when you call on him if you can. And I was able to do that around the first turn. And then I just tried to pick horses to follow that were accelerating through the middle of the race, you know, so I didn't have to do it all at once. So I found little spots. I had to probably make 6 or 7 decisions on do I go outside, do I stay inside, and I pretty much knew that I couldn't circle the field and win. I just didn't think I had enough horse to do that. So I tried to find little spots and horses to follow and gaps to make through the inside part of the rail, and when I turned for home, I just angled them out. And I think what makes it special and probably makes it look like it was so perfect was I won by nose. You know, if I'd have won by 2 or 3 lengths, probably a lot of emphasis wouldn't have been made on the decisions I made, but being the fact that I just got up in the last jump meant every decision had to be right.
Might that have been the best ride, certainly in a major race during your career?
I think so, yeah. Just because of the enormity of the race, the size of the field, the way he did it, and the margin of victory, yes.
Jerry, you discussed this in your book, Against the Odds. I'd like you to talk to our audience about this for a moment, if you would. How much better a rider, and by your own admission, a person, did you become once you stopped drinking?
Well, I mean, when I stopped drinking, I could see everything clearer. To be honest, it was night and day. I wouldn't probably even have to tell most people. They could look at the statistics and tell me when I quit drinking. But it was not only my performance on the track, it was my attitude with trainers. And people need to understand it. It's not only about ability, it's about a lot of PR in this game. You know, you have to get the sale before you can make the sale. In other words, you have to land the mount before you can execute your prowess as being a jockey. And a lot of that is, you know, although we have agents, is a lot of personal PR, and I simply was a grouch to be around when I was drinking, and all that changed. I had a great outlook on life when I stopped drinking, and I was a much more pleasurable person to be around. So, you know, it was a lot of contributing factors.
Jerry, since we here at Down the Stretch went on the air in March of '92, so many great Hall of Fame riders have retired. First Steve Coffin and Angel and the Shoe, and more recently Gary Stevens and Pat Day, and now Jerry Bailey. Two-part question. Talk about how it was competing against these men, the very best, and talk about overall how the landscape has changed as far as riders go.
Sure. Well, it was a thrill and an honor to compete against the fellows you just mentioned. When I stopped drinking, I was way down on the totem pole. Those guys were pretty much dominating the races. You know, Chu was probably kind of on his way out, actually, but he was a wonderful fellow to be around. But Pat and Gary and so many of the others, Delahousie, they were dominating the big races, Angel. And when I quit drinking, it took me about a year to really believe that I was as good as these guys. And once I believed that, it was a mission for me to figure out how I could get mounts as good as them and show that I was as good as them. So it was a mission for me, if you will. And I methodically tried to carry that out, and I think I did a pretty good job. As for the kids coming up now, man, I think there's a bunch of good kids coming up now. Obviously, Johnny and Edgar are no kids, and they're already starting to dominate. But Rafael Bejarano's a young man with unlimited potential, and I think they're going to do very well, and you'll hear from them a lot.
Jerry, so many people, including myself, have talked over the years how you seemingly always put a horse in a position to win, and how well you always appeared to be prepared for a race, how well you read a race. Talk to our audience about how you prepared for a particular race.
Well, first of all, I grew up riding quarter horses, so leaving the gate quick was natural to me. And I really believe that that's a length or two that you get. I don't care if you're going a mile and a half or 6 furlongs. If you can outbreak the other guy, that's a free length. Now, after you do that, if you choose the horse back to a certain spot, whether it be mid-pack or if the horse, if he wants to drop back, that's fine, but that's 2 lengths free. And if you choose to lay near the lead or stalk, that's that much closer you are without really having to use your horse. So, knowing I have the ability to get a horse out of the gate very well, I look at the races on paper. You know, before video came around, I used to rely strictly on the racing form. And I would sit down and I would map out the race on who I thought had the speed in the race, who was riding them. Because a lot of times you will find 2 or 3 horses that you think on paper that appear to have equal amount of speed. You know, they go the first quarter in 22-2, almost every race, and the first half is 45-1, and you say, they're on the lead every time. Who's faster, A, B, or C? And then you go to the jockey and you say, well, who's more aggressive? Who's more of the speed rider? Obviously, a horse Patrick Valenzuela is going to be on, or George Chavez. It's probably going to be quicker out of the gate because they're going to send him than a horse with Mark Kidry because he takes everything back. So that's how you differentiate the speed from the speed. And also, now with the advent of video, I can go and I'll see, well, did the horse make the lead going 22 and 45 on his own, or was he driven to do it? So I not only look at where they lay in the race, but how they got there to determine actually where the placing should be going into the first quarter, first half of the race, first 3 quarters. And then I plot my strategy around that.
Well, it has worked brilliantly over the years. I've got a couple of final questions for Jerry in just a moment, but for right now, I'll turn it over to my partner, Mike VIETCH.
Jerry, good to speak with you today.
Hey, Michael, how are you?
Long time. Jerry, you alluded to this earlier about working with trainers, and you know, you've worked so well with so many great ones, but I want to ask you a question on that in developing relationships with trainers. What's the hard part of that?
Well, I suppose the hardest part, once you've established some kind of contact, is you've gone up to a man and you said, listen, I want to ride your horses. Mm-hmm. So then he gives you the opportunity to ride his horses, and you become popular and attractive and in demand. And then, so maybe a few of his horses aren't the best horses in the race, and somebody comes to you with a better one. Yeah. The hard part is not offending the people that you've just gone to say, let me ride for you, but by the way, I don't want to ride horse A, B, and C because I got a better mount in those races. So it's a fine balance, and the agent comes in very, very strongly there. the diplomacy you have to use in this game. It's not easy.
I absolutely. One trainer in particular, Jerry, I want to ask you to say a few words about today is Mac Miller and his work with you and his influence with you.
Well, I thought I could make it through without choking up.
Oh, dear. Okay.
He was like a second father to me.
Yeah.
I came to New York in 1982, and I was obviously still drinking then. And he took me under his wing, and he gave me a chance on arguably the nation's strongest stable. If not the strongest, at least the most well-respected. And I think I did a pretty good job, but, you know, the less than 100% performances, I think, took its toll, and Mac and I separated in '87 for a year. But once I got my life back on track, he gave me a second opportunity. And, you know, history speaks for itself. I ended up winning the Derby for him, and I think it was only fitting that it worked out like that. A race for a Kentucky gentleman that he had aspired to win all his life, from a guy that, for me, that meant the most to me. So he is always very special in my heart, and without him, my career would obviously not have been the same.
That's beautifully said, Jerry. This might be a tough question. Is there a horse that comes to mind that you rode during your career that never delivered on the physical talent that you knew he had?
Well, yeah. Well, there's one that stands out, and you're going to think I'm silly for saying this, but it was Sea Hero.
Okay.
No, because he won the Derby, he won the Travers, and he won the Champagne.
Yeah.
But he only showed up those 3 days. You know, he had so much talent that he didn't show in all the other races. It was very frustrating.
Yeah.
He's a horse that could have won the Triple Crown.
How about that?
You know, and he wasn't really mentally unstable, and he wasn't unsound. There was just something about him that clicked on certain days and didn't on others, and I was unable to put my finger on it, as well as Mac. I think he did a good job getting him to come to be on those particular days, actually.
On some big days, though. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jerry, a couple questions on the state of the game. There's a perception that thoroughbreds today are increasingly fragile. Do you and your fellow riders, particularly veteran riders, do you share that perception?
I do, to a certain degree. I really do. I think a lot of it is the fast times that people want to see. Thus, you get fast and hard racetracks. I also believe it's too much racing. I really do. You know, I wasn't around years ago when they took off for the winter and gave the horses time off. You know, they didn't have LASIK, so when they bled, my God, you had to turn them out and give them some time, and I think that was a benefit not only for the bleeding problem they had, but for the other physical infirmities they might have had. So I think that the bottom line has become so important for people, for the accountants in the back room, that you got to race, but I just think it takes its toll on the horses. Less is sometimes better.
Yeah, related question there too, Jerry, is another perception that in our time right now, this emphasis on speed shown at 2-year-old sales is a negative. Do you agree?
Well, I agree. I think it starts there. When I say too much racing, it incorporates the phrase too much too soon.
Yeah.
And I think that with the enormous purses that we have for 2-year-olds, I can understand the return that the owners want to get on their investment, but there is a toll at the end of the road, and the toll is unsoundness as a 3-year-old, and obviously no horse at 4 and 5.
And finally, Jerry, before I go to my last question with you, on behalf of our audience here, much obliged for your time today. Now, Jerry, one last question for me. If you could change one thing in the industry today, what might it be?
The way they promote their human stars.
Terrific answer. Here's Mark.
Jerry, would you like to go a little more into detail about that?
Well, I can finish by saying, or the lack of the way they promote their human stars.
Right.
It's so simple to me.
Yeah.
The horses are obviously the driving force of our game. I will never question that. But everybody that works there, from the grooms, the hot walkers, the trainers, everybody. But the only two things that people see are the horse and the jockey out there. And the same jockeys are in the big races year in and year out for 10 years. You're going to see Edgar Prado, Johnny Velasquez, Rafael Bejarano, probably Corey Nakatani, Quintus Ormo in the Kentucky Derby, Preakness, Valmont, Breeders' Cup, and all the other big races for the next 10 years. Are you going to see the same horses every year? No.
Yeah.
You know, the Derby, by virtue of being a 3-year-old, you know you're not going to see the same ones. And if they're lucky enough to be a Smarty Jones or a Fleet Alex or a great horse, if they're sound enough at the end of the year, they're too valuable as stud, so they're gone. But the same humans, the same trainers, the same 5 or 6 trainers, and the same 10 or 12 jockeys are there every year, every week, as a matter. So why not take the human element and promote it to the public, because they know they're going to tune in and say, well, I don't know who's running this year's Derby, but I know Velasquez and Prado will be there, so let's tune in and see what they're riding. To me, it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Jerry,
Mark.
your final mount is scheduled to be Silver Tree for your old friend Bill Mott. Talk about your association with Billy over the years.
Probably next to Mac Miller, one of the finest gentlemen I've ever met on the racetrack, and been able to ride for a consistent basis. Consummate horseman. I know the horses are well prepared when I get there to the track. You know, they run according to form. He's not a crybaby. If he knows when you lead him over there that sometimes they're going to win, but more times they're going to lose. And he's become a great friend. I mean, I don't think Cigar would have lasted the 2 years that he did in a lot of the barns around the country, but certainly he got the most out of them. And it was a pleasure riding for him. I'll miss him.
Just 2 final questions, Jerry, and this one I don't think I've ever asked of anybody in all the interviews I've ever done. What are you going to do come Sunday?
I'm going to start with breakfast, and then I'm going to go to lunch, and then I'll go to dinner.
That's good.
And just spend a lot of time with the family.
All 3 of those will include the entire family.
That's wonderful. Finally, Jerry, what would you most like to be remembered for? What would you like your legacy as a rider to be?
Well, that I gave people their money's worth, I think. That I gave their horse, whoever they bet on, that I was riding, a chance to win. I put him in a spot where if he was good enough, he'd win.
Jerry, congratulations on a brilliant career. We are going to miss you. There are many racing fans that just will not be the same. Good luck on Saturday in the Sunshine Millions, particularly with Silver Tree for Billy in your final ride, and best of luck in the future.
Thanks, guys.
Good luck. Good luck, Jerry.
Jerry Bailey, ladies and gentlemen, via telephone from Florida. The word or term great is highly overused in sports. I've heard hitters in baseball who average, 270 called great. This man was great at what he did over the last 14 years. He made me a better handicapper because I could understand what he could do with horses. And I want to thank Ron Anderson, Jerry's agent, for helping to set up that interview. But this is the end of an era in New York.
Yeah, it is. It's very well put. It is the end of an era.
And he is so articulate, as you heard, that he will do extremely well as an analyst for ABC and ESPN. And we are up to our final break on this morning's edition of Down the Stretch. Thank you so much for having joined us. When Michael and I return, much more to do. We will unveil our lists, our updated lists of top Derby prospects. We'll take a quick glance at what's happening in Pool 1 in the Derby Futures, and then Michael will have his weekly pedigree profile. So all of that and more coming up right after these messages.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Toner, and you're watching Capital OTB.
Need some excitement in your life? Ride in comfort with Yankee Trails to Foxwoods Resort Casino with over 370 tables, the world's largest bingo hall, and over 7,000 slot machines. For one low price and so many days to choose from, Yankee Trails and Foxwoods have your ticket to excitement. Call 286-2400 or pay less when you book online at yankeetrails.com.
Yankee Trails will travel, people with the right connections.
Do you have million-dollar dreams? Go to twtv.com and search for the home of your dreams. Or search by price and find a home that fits your budget. From a cozy cottage to a home fit for royalty, twtv.com puts the best homes in the area at your fingertips. That million-dollar home might be just a dream, but you'll be sure to find a home that you can call your own at TWTV.com.
TWTV, Time Warner Cable Channel 7.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. Mike Veach to my left. I'm Mark CUSANO. Again, our thanks go out to Jerry Bailey for having joined us. I can't imagine even the fellas competing in the Super Bowl, there was any other professional athlete this past week, or certainly the last few days, that have had more media requests than Jerry Bailey. So that was very nice of him. We are 98 days away from the first Saturday in May and the Run for the Roses, and this morning we are going to update our lists of our top Kentucky Derby prospects, and I will get things started. And I have kept things exactly the same right at the very top. Stevie Wonderboy, in spite of his loss, is still my number one. As you peruse that list, I will tell you that First Samurai, who is my number 5 Derby prospect, worked this morning at Gulfstream Park for trainer Frank Brothers, and he worked from the gate. This was an important workout for First Samurai. He worked from the gate a half mile in 48 and change and galloped out 5/8 in 1:01 and change. Frankie said he was very pleased with the work, and Frank is scheduled to be one of our guests on next week's show. Brother Derek moves up to number 2, Bluegrass Cat, who's had a minor setback. He will not be able to make the Holy Bull, but he really only missed a couple of days. In fact, Todd got a key workout into him that he needed. Your 10 or mine. Lawyer Ron joins the list. As long as they keep him on dirt, they'll be fine. Private Vow at number 7. I was very impressed with Barbican. He moves up to number 8, and he's an old salt at number 9. Bob and John from Bafferton, Flashy Bull, and Wanna Runner. Wanna Runner starts tomorrow in the El Camino Real Derby. Sun River was beaten by He's an Old Salt, but he's the full brother to Ashado. AP Warrior also goes in the El Camino. He's got to show me something. It's all about the chase. Achilles of Troy. I have an inner dirt track horse on here. Tatsuji Sorcerer's Stone is back in training. And at number 20, again, I just left it Zito Pletcher. Let me name you a few of the horses they have. Zito has Doc Cheney and Hemingway's Keys. I think Doc Cheney might be running in that Tampa Stakes this weekend. Great Point and Superfly and Fabled and Little Cliff. Pletcher's got My Golden Song and High Cotton and Stone Cider and Half Hours and Key Entry. But there is my list of top Derby prospects as we stand 98 days in front of America's greatest race. And now, Mr. Inner Dirt, let's take a look.
I knew that was coming.
Let's take a look at my partners. Where is he?
No, listen, I mean, the earth shakes. Mark has an Inner Dirt horse on the Derby top 20. That's pretty impressive. He's not on my top of the list, not yet. Actually, my first 10 are the same first 10. I've just changed a little bit of the lineup, if you will. Stevie Wonderboy, 2 last week, is 1 now. Brother Derek moves up from 6 to number 2. Bluegrass Cat, I've dropped to 3rd on the news that his work and comeback has been delayed somewhat, maybe till March because of a fever. I hope, Mark, this isn't one of these lingering long things that along about April somebody says, guess what, he's got to have the rest of the year off.
I don't think so.
I hope not, but
because Todd got that important work into him the day that he wanted.
I understand. I know. I know. First Samurai, who goes next week. Private Vow. A couple of other notes as we go down my list. Number 6, Henny Hughes, is in Dubai. Number 7, Sorcerer's Stone, a horse I really do like. I liked him. I may have picked him in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. He's got to get moving pretty soon as far as I'm concerned. AP Warrior, Mark says he's got to show him more. He's got to show me more mentally tomorrow in the El Camino Real. If he doesn't, I'm going to kind of have to let go of him. Neil at number 9, Your 10 or Mine, the same spot, and Bob and John, the same spot as before. A couple of the notes. Number 13, Music School, goes today at Oaklawn Park in race 7. I think he's going a mile. Number 16, Corinthian, scratched from the Aventura. I'd like to see him get going for Jimmy Jerkins. Number 20, Well Armed, has 1 at the Derby distance. And I have a deliberate leave out here. It's Barbero, the very, very good grass horse, who will join my list if he runs well next week. He is supposed to make his debut on dirt in the Holy Bull. But there's a look at my group, and no Achilles of Troy. You got him.
And I'm glad you brought up Barbaro, because I left him out as well. I just want to see what he does on dirt. Now, Pool 1 of the Derby Futures is opened. It opened on Thursday. It will continue until Sunday evening at 6 p.m. We've got you the updated odds from 7 o'clock this morning. As you take a look at this page, 23 individual horses in number 24, the pari-mutuel field. I was talking with Michael, while the Bailey interview was going. When, this bet is only going to succeed big time when they can open it up and have a totalizator system where they could take 200 or 250 different betting entries. With 23, it's critical that the committee puts the proper 23 horses in there, and in my very strong opinion, they did not do that. There's a couple of horses in here who don't belong. Blazing Rate doesn't belong in here. He's going to get no play. Cause to Believe doesn't belong in here right now. He's not going to get any play. In fact, his trainer, Jerry Hollendorfer, has already said, we're not even thinking about the Derby right now. So, the committee did a bad job as far as placing those horses in there. Because they have those horses in there who aren't going to take any money, they don't have a horse like He's an Old Salt, who's already won it 1 1/8 for a man who's won the Kentucky Derby twice. So instead of being able to get, 35 or 40 to 1 on a legitimate horse, you got Blazing Rate and Cause to Believe who got, I'm sorry, no realistic chance right now. The pari-mutuel field, as expected, the 6 to 5 betting favorites. First Samurai right now, the most of all the individual horses at 9 to 1. He's the second choice. Stevie Wonder Boy at 10. A couple of pretty good prices here. Your 10 or mine is 30. Now the problem is the same thing that makes your 10 or mine intriguing, and that's Neil Drysdale. I mean, if your 10 or mine looks at him cross-eyed one morning, then he's not going to the Kentucky Derby. But you know what? If he ever gets in the gate, then you've got a heck of a chance. I was very impressed by Barbican. Very impressed. And I think 30 to 1 is legitimate. And I was quite impressed, actually, by Lawyer Ron as well. So, again, that bet will be open until Sunday evening at 6 p.m. If you like, horses like AP Warrior, who my partner likes a lot better than I do, you've got to wait for the El Camino Real tomorrow because I believe it's before 6 o'clock our time. But there's a look, and those are the updated odds again as of 7 a.m. on Saturday morning. All right, pedigree time. Within this pedigree profile, you will be watching this colt who is now number 3 on both of our lists. You will be watching him win the Nashua at 1 mile and then wire the field at 9 furlongs in the Remsen. Ladies and gentlemen, my partner's look at the Todd Pletcher trained Bluegrass Cat.
And early in the year, this is the year of the bees, and as Mark said to me last week, I make these crazy blind bets on pedigree. I'll probably spend $2 on Bluegrass Cat this afternoon, maybe even on Barbican. Bred and owned by Windstar and trained by Todd Pletcher. One of my predictions for 2006, back on the first day of the year, was that Todd would win his first classic this year. And this guy, Bluegrass Cat, just might be the horse to put that trophy in his case. There is, in my opinion, probably not a better bred horse in this year's group of Derby hopefuls than this one, whose generations include mares from the great La Troyenne of Colonel E.R. Bradley in the 20s and subsequent buyers of Mr. Bradley's stock, Mrs. Henry Carnegie Phipps, Bob Kleberg of King Ranch, and the Green Tree Stud. Bluegrass Cat is by Stormcat, one of North America's and the world's most influential sires, who commands a stud fee of $500,000. Stormcat is the source of an endless run of important stakes winners at every distance, including Irish Champion Stakes winner Giant's Causeway, Belmont Stakes winner Tabasco Cat, Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies winner Storm Flag Flying and Sweet Catamine, Breeders' Cup Sprint winner Desert Stormer, Kentucky Oaks winner Sardula, and Beldame winner Sharp Cat. We could go on and on with Grade 1 winners by this guy. Stormcat indisputably gets a 10 ranking for the sire. Bluegrass Cat's other sires in his pedigree are in the broodmare sire position, and they are phenomenal. Are you ready for this? In general order, these sires are, I'm like in the library of happiness with this. AP Indy, Mr. Prospector, Northern Dancer, Buck Passer, Swaps, and Nasrullah. I'll say that one more time, since I've got the time and it will make the time. In generational order, his broodmare sires are AP Indy, Mr. Prospector, Northern Dancer, Buck Passer, Swaps, Nasrullah. I mean, it doesn't get any better, and clearly, every one of Bluegrass Cat's first 6 dams were from classy enough mothers to have been sent to these leading sires. AP Indies by Seattle Slew, and the cross of Stormcat to Seattle Slew has been highly potent, resulting in 5 stakes winners from 12 runners, including Millionaire Raging Fever. Bluegrass Cat is a half-brother to 10 Furlong Hawthorne Gold Cup winner, Lord of the Game. His second dam, Get Lucky, won the Grade 3 affectionately and is the producer of Daydreaming, winner of the Grade 3 Top Flight at a mile and the Grade 3 Next Move at a mile and an eighth, and of Accelerator, winner of the 9 Furlong Pilgrim as a 2-year-old and subsequently placed in the Wood Memorial and Met Mile. Get Lucky's mother is the Northern Dancer mare Dance Number. She won the Grade 1 Beldame when it was a 1.25 miles, and she produced Travers winner Rhythm at a 1.25 miles. Dance Number's mother is Champion Filly Numbered Account, the mother of Top Sire Private Account, winner of the Grade 1 Widener and Gulfstream Park Handicaps, both at, you guessed it, a 1.25 miles. Numbered Account is out of Intriguing, the dam of Cunning Trick, who won the Gallant Fox at a 1.5 miles. Finally, Intriguing's mom is Test Stakes winner Glamour, who produced Boucher, winner of the English St. Ledger at a 1.75 miles, Poker, winner of the Bowling Green at a 1.3 miles. Bluegrass Cat's dam gets a ranking of 10.2. For all intents and purposes, it could be 20.2. This is a gorgeous, terrific pedigree, loaded with class. Todd, maybe it's got to happen this year.
Owned and bred by Windstar Farm, the winner of the Remsen and the Nashua, which you just saw, as well as a Belmont Maiden. Bluegrass Cat is unbeaten in 3 starts since moving to the Pletcher Barn. 10.0 on top, 10.2 on the bottom for an overall 10.1. But as Bob wrote in his email, you know, Bob, this is Stormcat on top, and there is 0 way that you can ever go less than 50% with a sire like Stormcat. What a number that is for Bluegrass Cat. Let us now take a look at the 3 pedigrees which Michael has done. Right now, they are the top 3 on our list of Derby prospects, not in this order, but Bluegrass Cat, 10.1. Stevie Wonderboy, 9.275, and Brother Derek, 9.0. Partner, thank you for that look at the regally bred Bluegrass Cat.
His page is the history of American leading sires.
Wow.
That's what it is.
All right, a couple of final reminders for those of you who would like to correspond with us here at Down the Stretch. Here are the ways in which you can do that. Through the United States Postal Service, Down the Stretch, Mark and Mike. Capital District OTB 510 Smith, Schenectady 12305, or electronically at viewermail@capitalotb.com. Today, the Sunshine Millions at Gulfstream Park in Santa Anita, and more importantly, the final ride in the great career of jockey Jerry Bailey, the final mount scheduled to be Silver Tree for Billy Mott in the Gulfstream 9th race, the Sunshine Millions Turf. We wish Jerry all the best and thank him for having been on this morning's show. Tomorrow, the El Camino Real Derby in Northern California and the close of Pool 1 of the Kentucky Derby Futures. Also this afternoon, as Michael mentioned, Music School in the 7th at Oaklawn in an allowance race. Next week, what a day of racing at Gulfstream Park. For the 3-year-olds, the Hutchison, the return of First Samurai, and we are scheduled to have his trainer, Frank Brothers, as one of our guests on next week's show. Also, the Holy Bull, and that will mark the dirt debut of Barbaro, and we will try to get his trainer, Michael Matz, for you. And also, for the older horses, the Don Handicap. So a sensational Saturday of racing next week as we kick off the month of February. Time to thank all the folks who got this week's show on the air. Dan Hayes directed, Patrick Peretta, Pete Persico, Kurt Flick. Our associate producer, Julie Hoxie, working with Ron Anderson and Jerry Bailey. Great job in setting up that interview because that was not an easy thing to do. And thanks so much, Jerry. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, enjoy it yourself.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to leave you this morning with a little piece of video on the 1996 Dubai World Cup and the victory of Cigar with Jerry Bailey aboard. So enjoy that. Enjoy this great, great day of racing coast to coast. Have a terrific weekend and a wonderful upcoming week. And Michael and I will see you next week.
Cigar, he's going double as he turns for home with 3 furlongs to go. The carrier tries to make a race of it. Cigar, the star Steve Jacket. Yellow slides, here comes 10